Alright, listen up everyone. They've announced that the technical regulations are changing for next season. Now there's a risk a lot of our hard work could be undone if we're not careful, so let's figure out how to mitigate this. Drivers, take a look at the developments we have and let us know what you want to invest in protecting. Alright everyone, let's get on top of this.
Konnichiwa and welcome back to my F1 2019 career mode for the Japanese Grand Prix today. This is a race I'm very much looking forward to. I love the Suzuka circuit, but as you just heard, we have some technical regulation changes coming in for the next season. So that will potentially mix up the order, but we'll have to find out what those regulations affect. We've got 3 upgrades on for this weekend. So we should have some massive gains, hopefully, compared to the rest of the field. We'll see how that affects our pace come practice, but that is a lot of upgrades coming in at once for this one. So things are looking good on that front. And also there is no real weather to interfere. Not a single sunny icon over the entire weekend. It's all cloudy, but no rain, so clouds are just fine. So as we go over to look at the R&D, we'll see that we have gained quite significantly compared to Red Bull. Haven't quite caught up to them, but we have jumped Haas, so there is that. But unfortunately just not quite enough to catch up to Red Bull. They bring quite significant upgrades themselves. Obviously it's the home race for them, or for their engine rather. And we do have a chassis upgrades to both the chassis and aero side, but we still haven't touched the engine side, so I'll need to do that probably next season. But you can see we are 4th on the aero side, so we have found some massive improvements over the season. Remember, we started in second last. In fact, we're 4th on both the aero and chassis. So yeah, we really have come forwards in both of those parts of the car. Now the engine is the thing that's letting us down, but I haven't invested anything in sort of the future there. On the engine side, no quality control or department efficiency, so I'll leave that for the next season. The car will be a little bit unbalanced, but anyway, let's get into practice.
Welcome to Suzuka in Japan, where today's practice session is about to begin on this figure-of-8 circuit. The Suzuka track never disappoints, and that's probably why it's so loved by drivers and fans alike. One of the more intimidating corners on any Formula One track is the legendary 130R. Whilst unusual, the name actually comes from the original design of the corner, a 130-metre radius turn starting just past the track crossover. Over the years, due to several severe accidents, the corner's been redesigned to create a straighter entry and creating what is now a double apex left-handed corner.
Despite the changes, this is still one of the most exhilarating corners that drivers in F1 have to take. It's not normally considered an overtaking spot, but this is the scene of one of Fernando Alonso's most famous manoeuvres, when in 2005 he passed Michael Schumacher's Ferrari around the outside.
We're going to be logging some extra data during this session. Nothing you need to worry about, but as we have some new parts, we'll just confirm they're performing to spec.
So even though I just said that this is one of my favourite tracks, it has been said that the AI around this circuit are very strong, and I do generally feel like using a controller to navigate this circuit does put you at a bit of a disadvantage, just with the sort of flowing nature and the style of corners. But excuses out the way as we graze the wall there. I think we can still be in for a good weekend, and I still very much enjoy driving this circuit. But in the background you can see we're smashing out all of the practice programs. No major issues throughout practice, just the usual grind.
Great stuff. You've pretty much nailed this circuit. This is a really strong foundation to build from over the weekend.
To get the resource points.
It's time to remind ourselves of our top 3. who are Bottas, Perez and Sebastian Vettel. And that's it, practice is officially over. Until next time, goodbye.
So you can see no pace in practice 1, but we were just doing the slower programs, fuel, tyres, ERS, etc. But Perez was up in P2, so that is some really promising pace from Sergio there. So obviously he was running maybe some race simulations or even qualifying in that one, because he was on fire. So
Great lap. You've nailed what we asked for. Keep it up.
as you can see, we are on the race simulation. Had a bit of a spin there, and that ruined lap 4. So that was the end of that program. Still got enough laps in, clean laps in, to go purple, but just lost the rear end there, and that is something that I have to be very careful of. But I don't have the results of practice 2. Kind of got one of the video files corrupted. Not sure how that happened, but anyway, practice 3 though, we did the qualifying runs, and I could only go green.
That lap beats our primary target time.
And with all the cars now over the line, let's see our top 3 again. Vettel, Bottas and Charles Leclerc. What an incredible practice session. The fun doesn't...
So that was the first indication that the pace might not be quite as good as I initially thought it was, because normally I can do those qualifying runs pretty easily.
Great work out there today. Let's have your thoughts.
Alright.
You put in a lot of time on the track today. Was there a reason for this?
We've got quite a few upgrades on for this weekend, so we're just testing those out.
It looks like you've really been focusing on research and development this season.
Yeah, it has been a big focus in the recent past, and we've found some massive gains with the car, and I think we can move on and challenge the top 3 very shortly.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Claire. So that was that. So yeah, I'm not sure where the pace will really be at for this weekend. As you can see here, in light of that, I am actually turning the difficulty down back to 85, which I haven't run since Australia or Bahrain maybe. Not for a long time anyway. No, I turned it up for Bahrain. So yeah, I haven't run this difficulty since Melbourne. But anyway, that is what we're going to have to do for this one. I do probably not so much in this game, but in F1 2018 I certainly turned the difficulty up and down per round, running as high as 95 in Austria. But anyway, let's just get into qualifying.
Welcome to the only figure-of-8 track on the F1 calendar. We're here at Suzuka for qualifying today ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix. Watching some of the cars attack the high-speed corners, it occurred to me that this might be one of the more awkward tracks to prepare a car for. Do you go for top speed over grip, or do you look to maximise performance in all the corners?
Drivers are going to need a nicely balanced car to be fast here. They'll need to get the most out of the medium and high-speed corners, which will push them to run more downforce. But in turn, this slows the car down on the straights. It's a tricky balancing act.
So here we are for qualifying Q1. So let's see what we can do through the first corner. I love this for these first 2 corners. You just sort of throw it in and hope that you turn the steering wheel at the right time and stay on the racing line. And through this first sector, probably not my favorite part of the track to try to navigate, especially as I said with the controller. But as we head on to Spoon, we just a little bit out of shape through there, and that will be a theme for this weekend if we're not careful. So I really have to focus to get around this track cleanly, and I really love that challenge about it. But into the chicane for the end of the lap, and a big cut there. Very surprised that we can get away with that, even I'm not on strict corner cutting. but even so, that was a bit ridiculous. But anyway, we get away with that and set a time, so we'll find out where that puts us. But my run through the first sector, as I sort of mentioned, wasn't great, so I'm going on for another lap to see if I can find any improvement there. And you can see we're already green as we're going through the first few corners, but it doesn't take long. Make a little mistake there, just completely missing the apex and then running it off the road.
2 laps of fuel remaining.
And very lucky not to end up in the wall there. But thankfully that first lap was good enough for third, so corner cutting really helping us out there. But as for the rest of the field, we have Lucas Weber knocked out in Q1, as well as Kimi Räikkönen, George Russell, Danny Kvyat and Robert Kubica. Let's get into Q2. Alright, so here we are in Q2 for our second lap of qualifying, so let's see if we can put another decent lap in without corner cutting this time. Would be ideal. And you can see quite nicely through the first corner that time, a bit more smoothly than our Q1 lap. And then through here, just trying to keep it on the line and not make any mistakes, more than trying to actually optimize the track itself. You really don't want to touch the curbs there. And you can see a little bit out of shape on the exit there, but not too bad. We were able to keep the throttle planted and hopefully not lose any time in doing that. But through the Degners pretty well, and now into the hairpin, and there's a car up ahead, but hopefully they won't get in our way. But through the hairpin quite nicely, and now on the run towards Spoon. And we may just be close enough along the back straight to get a bit of slipstream, but a little bit wide through Spoon, but not too bad. And very careful not to use that inside curb there too much, or you will spin around a bit like Bahrain is the most notable example of a curb that will do that. But into the chicane now at the end of the lap. It's been a pretty nice lap, so hopefully we'll be able to set a lap time good enough to get into Q3 straight out in this session. We'll be able to save the tyres, so we'll see. That has put us in good position now, and we remain in P3. So our pace has seemed to have come back to us in qualifying. Sergio Perez down in 6th, so he's through as well. And looking at the cars that are knocked out, we have Pierre Gasly, Daniel Ricciardo knocked out as well in the Renault, as well as Devon Butler in the Haas, Lando Norris in the other McLaren. The McLaren's struggling a bit, and the other Alfa Romeo of Antonio Giovinazzi. So now in Q3, let's get our final lap in and see if we can set a good grid position for ourselves for this Japanese Grand Prix through the first sector. Just trying to push a little bit more than what we did in Q2. Now it really matters. It's for track position this time, and we get through sector 1 fairly well. Now into the Degners, quite tricky, but managing to just about keep it on the road through there. A little bit offline through Degner 2. That's going to cost us a little bit, but now into the hairpin. Just actually using the apex there, which is not recommended by the engineer, but it's what we did. But I'm not really sure if it makes a huge difference. And as we move on through the rest of the lap through Spoon, very lucky to get away with using the curb there on the inside, but along the back straight now heading towards 130R, one of the most amazing corners in the game, and through there nice and smoothly. And then now into the last sector chicane, just trying to keep it on the road, not cutting the chicane this time, and a little bit of a loss of the rear end on the exit. But as we cross the line, we're going to go up into P7 for now, so or P8 rather. Sergio Perez P7, so a decent position, but I think we can improve on that. So we're going to go again, and through the first corner, chucking it in, and trying to carry as much momentum through there as possible. You can see we're already green, so the track position's improving, and just myself improving, finding improvements in the driving style through this first sector. And as we go on through the exit of Dunlop, we're finding some more time. So now through the Degners, we lost a bit of time here on the first lap. A little bit cautious, I might say, and actually ending up cutting that corner a little bit, but not too badly. And now through the hairpin, we just need to bring this lap home, and we'll find some decent improvement over the previous one. Green first sector. As I mentioned, we'll find out the second sector soon. So as we head along the back straight, the session has come to an end. So this is our final lap for sure. And there are still people setting fastest laps of green second sector. So we are finding some decent improvement over our previous lap. Now into the final sector, the last chicane, the big cut there. And again, very lucky to get away with that. But as we head out of the final corner and across the line, where are we going to qualify?
Good work.
P6. Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top three. Hamilton, Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. With qualifying complete, all that remains is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so make sure you join us then.
So the championship leader, Lewis Hamilton, on pole position from the two Ferraris, pushing him all the way there, and the two Red Bulls. Quite strong around this circuit, as you would imagine, but looking, I just had a brief look at the championship just to see what the gaps are at, and you can see there the Ferraris are certainly not out of it, but they might need a retirement from Hamilton in the coming races to get their way back into the championship fight.
Well done. Very solid results. You're looking good for the race.
But anyway, notice we did out-qualify both myself and Perez, out-qualified Valtteri Bottas, so that was quite interesting. But anyway, let's get into the race.
And a very warm welcome to the Japanese Grand Prix, an event that has decided a Drivers' Championship 11 times over the years and has hosted some very memorable races as well. Who can forget Kimi Raikkonen's win from 17th on the grid in 2005, or Kamui Kobayashi's incredible drive to a podium in 2012. A lap of this historic racetrack covers 3.6 miles, and it's the only time during the season that we race on a figure-of-8 racetrack. The drivers can expect some intense G-forces through the 18 corners on offer here as they experience some of the highest average apex speeds on the Formula One calendar. And keep an eye out for overtakes going into the final chicane. Joining us today to oversee all the thrills and spills, it's Anthony Davidson. And great to see you. How are you feeling about the race today, and how are the circuit conditions from what you've seen?
Well, it's looking a bit cold out there, if I'm honest. These tyres have quite a narrow operating window in terms of the temperatures they need to extract the best grip. So with a cold track surface, it's going to be harder to keep those temperatures up, which will lead to lower grip and maybe more mistakes.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position with Charles Leclerc alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Vettel, Hülkenberg, the scientist, and Perez, Bottas, Magnussen, Albon, and Pierre Gasly, Ricciardo, Butler, Lando Norris, and Verstappen. Giovinazzi, Weber, Kimi Raikkonen, and George Russell, Fiat, and Robert Kubica takes the last spot on the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
5 races remaining, and you've still got a chance of winning the World Drivers' title. Let's grab a solid points finish.
Alright, thanks Jeff, I appreciate the optimism, but we're not going for the championship today. We go to 5 red lights, and as lights out and away we go for the Japanese Grand Prix. It's a superb start versus Sebastian Vettel. Charles Leclerc, a nice start as well, already ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who's absolutely bottled it on the start of this one. Hülkenberg with a big dive to the inside of the first corner, and moving his way up into 4th position, flying the flag for the Honda engine around Suzuka, and he will be pushing very hard to try to get a podium in this one. But as for us, we've dropped a spot off the start, but to be honest, I'm not sure what the pace will be like versus the big 3 teams, and as you can see, Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez battling away behind. Sergio Perez holding on for now, but for how long for, I do not know. But we're dropped off the back of Hulkenberg a little bit off this start, but we'll see what happens when the tyre temperatures come into it.
Okay, we're through the start phase. Now let's build on it.
And we've survived the start, and that is a big bonus in itself. The first corner can be quite sketchy here, but we have survived, and only dropped one position to Hulkenberg. And to be honest, I'm not expecting big things in the race. I'm not sure how my consistency will be around Suzuka, so I'll just be happy if we can keep it clean and not do that too many times. If we can just keep it clean, keep the front wing on the car, and hopefully bring home a decent result. But I don't think we'll have the pace of the top 3 teams or even our teammate in this one. But we'll be fighting for every position. But meanwhile, for the race lead, Hamilton down the inside of Leclerc has hit him and spun around. Hamilton sideways across the road, backing out of the way. You can see we had to take evasive action off track around the outside. Very lucky to get away with that and not lose a position. But Hamilton, a big mistake there, and that has dropped him to the back of the grid. You can see on board looking back from Nico Hulkenberg there, just how lucky we were to get away with that, not lose a position. And Hamilton rejoins the track in second last position ahead of Robert Kubica. A little bit cheeky there, I might say, but
VSC ending, we're going green. Maintain positive delta until the green flags.
clearly he doesn't care about Robert Kubica, who literally waited there on the edge of the track for everyone to go past, except for Robert Kubica. But we get back underway after a short VSC, and now Valtteri Bottas putting pressure on Sergio Perez, and they're going to be side by side into the first corner. Bottas down the inside of Perez, side by side through turn 2, and Perez holds it round the outside. But we're going to have to come back to that because Albon's off the road, and as he comes back on, he makes contact with another car, and I saw some carbon fibre flying there. There was definitely some damage for one of them, but let's see how this started. Albon down the inside of Kevin Magnussen in the Renault, and exactly the same mistake as Lewis Hamilton. So we'll have a look on board with Albon just to see how it played out. Did he get a squeeze? He did get a bit of a squeeze, but there was definitely space for a car there. Albon just didn't take it, and that was a Haas car that Albon made contact with as he rejoined. Very impatient there from Alex Albon. It was Devon Butler that he made contact with. Let's see what Devon Butler saw, and oh, that is so unfortunate for Devon. But anyway, looking back at the battle between Bottas and Perez side by side through the entire first sector, you can see I backed up just a little bit to just try and hold up Bottas, try to give him some dirty air to try to help out my teammate, and it just didn't quite work out though, and Bottas got ahead in the end anyway. So Valtteri Bottas up another position, and down the inside of myself as well. So Bottas flying through the field at this point, and I just thought I'd let him do his own thing. We're not going to be able to hold him off for an entire race, and in fact, as a sign of our pace, at least on these soft tyres, Sergio Perez goes through as well. So big struggles at this point. But oh, we've got an issue here for Lewis Hamilton. He's travelling quite slowly. That was a McLaren passing him on the inside. He's pulling off the road, and Lewis Hamilton is out of the Japanese Grand Prix. A mechanical failure for him. That is an absolute disaster.
Green flag.
And as for the championship I mentioned just earlier on in this episode, Ferrari might be waiting for a mechanical failure or a DNF for Hamilton to get them back in the championship, or even Bottas, and this is a perfect opportunity for them, so they need to capitalise. But one man that will try to stop that is Max Verstappen down the inside into the first corner, side by side on the exit. Can we hold on through turn 3? We squeeze him a little bit, almost off the track there for Verstappen, but we managed to hold on to the position for now ahead of the Red Bull driver. But we can only do that for so long, and he goes around the outside towards 130R. That's going to be sketchy. We just hold on there. Verstappen though, not lacking any bravery.
Car behind is catching you by 5/10 a lap. 5/10.
clearly this weekend, but as we head towards the first corner, down the inside again for Verstappen. So he is really pushing hard to try to get these positions, try to make his way up the field. But we got on the curb there a little bit, and that's exactly what I was saying earlier on. These curbs through the first sector are very sketchy, and we just give up the place to Verstappen while doing that. So the curbs costing us dearly there, and we've dropped the spot.
Our data is showing some wear.
And that could be potentially part of it as well. Here's the onboard with Verstappen, so close to contact through the first corner. Really great racing there, holding it around the outside. But you'll see just up here, just got on the curb, just slid a little bit, and he takes that opportunity, goes straight through. And in fact, we're very lucky not to have spun and ended up in the wall. But not long after that, Verstappen makes a pit stop and releases us into clean air once again.
Approaching the pit window, you'll be on the mediums.
And in fact, our pit stop will be coming quite soon. So here's Verstappen into the box, and he will be going on to another set of soft tyres. So a two-stop strategy for Verstappen. Quite interesting, but anyway, hopefully that will, for his sake, will work out for him. Rolling the dice a little bit. It's a one-stop for myself, but anyway, we
Let's box this lap.
yeah, we'll eventually come in for our pit stop, and here we are coming in for that stop at the end of that lap, braking nice and early. Quite a tricky pit entry, kind of braking and turning at the same time there. But anyway, into the box we'll go on to the medium tyres and get underway once again. And that is our one and only stop for this race. So hopefully we can just find
these tyres now. We want to finish the race on this compound.
a bit more pace on these medium tyres, and hopefully we'll stop sinking like a Haas car.
Verstappen is ahead of you. They're on fresh softs. Their tyres are 3 laps old. We think they've got one more stop.
And confirmation there, Verstappen has another stop to make. So that is quite crucial for the way this race will play out.
P10. We're into the points.
And up into the points now. So that's good. We've made our stop, and we're now in the points. So it's guaranteed points, barring any disasters. Verstappen and one of the McLaren's, Lando Norris, that is side by side into the first corner. Sergio Perez looking on, coming out of the pit lane there. That was a little bit sketchy there, but anyway, that was that was a little bit crazy there. A bit of contact between them, it looked like. But as we move on through the laps, you can see we're just gaining a couple more positions as the rest of the field come in for their stops, and we eventually move our way up into P7 in this race. So getting back towards where we qualified. There's another caution up ahead. We'll see what that's for. This is Max Verstappen coming up to Nico Hülkenberg down the inside. He's hit him and spun around into the wall, and out of the race goes Max Verstappen. That is a big mistake by one of those two drivers. I'm not going to judge who just yet, but the Red Bulls come together. Oh, that is a nasty one for Verstappen. That is an absolute disaster for Red Bull at the Honda home race. Verstappen a little bit impatient there. I don't think the move was really on. We're just having a look. Oh, Hülkenberg didn't really leave a car width on the inside there. Just looking at every possible different angle here, and I don't think he really had to at that point. Verstappen wasn't really alongside him properly. Just had the front wheels alongside enough to cause that disaster, but not really enough.
Incident in the next part of the track. No overtaking through the yellow flags.
To command the track position, and you can see I think he tried to back out of it, but it really didn't work out for him, and Verstappen now out of the race. But as for us, we are under pressure from Lucas Weber behind, but we're holding on for now, having to defend into the chicane. But Lucas Weber very speedy, and now he's going to go down the inside into the first corner. We move across just slightly, but we're going to hold it around the outside, and he's around. What has happened there? Lucas Weber has made the same mistake, I think, as many other drivers. Let's have a look again on the onboard, and exactly the same, a little bit further around this time, and there was definitely space on the inside there. Weber getting underway fairly quickly, it looked like there, but that is a big mistake from Weber there. And we've had a couple of companies together now. We had one in Germany, and now another one here in Japan. So yeah, a lot of battling with Weber, and I guess we're going to come together at some point. Putting a lap on Antonio Giovinazzi there as we go on through this race. It was actually a very lonely race for the most part. You can see we got piles and piles of space around us. There was probably a good 30 seconds between the car ahead and the car behind, which is quite ridiculous. So as we move on through the race, we have Lando Norris moving slowly, and I think he has an issue there. That is very close with the other McLaren, but it's a mechanical failure for Lando Norris, and he will not finish this race. Parks it up, and that is the end of the day for Lando Norris, unfortunately, because he was actually running quite well. But moving on to the end of the race, Charles Leclerc is the race winner for Ferrari. Sebastian Vettel pushing him all the way to the end, but it is Charles Leclerc, the Monegasque driver, taking the race win. Valtteri Bottas not far behind, pushing all the way to P3 in this one, but for us it is P6 at the moment, which is actually the position we qualified in. So not a bad result at all, considering the lack of pace that we had at times. But in this last stage of the race, we've actually been fairly consistent and held the margin in front.
Okay, gap ahead is 15.4 seconds.
And behind. So if we had this consistency from the start, we may have been in with a good fight with Sergio Perez. But the soft ice did really cost us. But we come across the line for P6.
Alright, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
Ferrari have really pulled it out of the bag today. It's a great win. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
And here we are, a team that is no stranger to the podium, taking their place on top once again. A sublime race today, and a stunning win for Ferrari.
So the Mercedes team might be leading the championship, but today is the day of Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. Today is the day of Ferrari.
Let's see what effect this result has had on the drivers' standings. Despite the best efforts of our championship leader, that lead has taken a bit of a knock today. Some amazing talent out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
I think it's got to be Lucas Weber. Time and time again, he proves that he's someone who can quietly get the job done, and that's exactly what he's done today.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. The lead at the top comes down after a strong weekend from the challenging pack. Well, that was certainly an incredible weekend of racing. Be sure to join myself and Ant for more exciting Formula One action soon.
So it is tightening up at the top of the championship, just 3 points between the two Mercedes drivers. Sebastian Vettel 11 points drift of the championship lead. So it is really anyone's guess as to who will win this one between the three of them. Charles Leclerc 50 points behind, not out of it by all means, but he will need a bit more luck on his side if he wants to win this championship in his first season with Ferrari. But a solid weekend for Ferrari in terms of the constructors, just creeping back into it slightly, but they will need a bit more to come if they want to take the fight to Mercedes there. But in the Drivers' Championship, it's anyone's guess. Lucas Faber, driver of the day. So despite us being still gaining quite a few positions from where he started, and a solid race by him nonetheless. So for us though, it was a bit of a frustrating one at the end. We had decent enough pace. We were matching Sergio Perez lap after lap after lap, not really gaining or losing any time. The gap stayed around 15 seconds for a long time. So I'm really annoyed that we weren't just a bit closer, and maybe could have taken the fight to him at some point. But that stint on the soft tyres that we had was quite dreadful, and that's what really cost us. The temperatures there were just they weren't working for us really. So anyway, we'll work on that. I'm not sure what to do about the tyre temperatures. I might at some point, maybe for the next season, turn off the carcass temperatures, because it's really only an issue on the soft tyres, and once we go onto the mediums, we always have similar pace to the AI, but on the softs we always just lose so much time with the tyre temperatures. So I'm thinking about doing that for the next season. We'll just go through the rest of this season the way it is now, and see if that's the issue. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do, I think. But anyway, looking through all these replay cameras, I think this is where Weber takes himself out. There we go. That was a bit of a mistake from him there. Why does it look like we've got a smiley face on the front of our car? I've never noticed that before. That's quite funny. But anyway, let's get into the interviews.
Amazing performance out there. I'm sure you're pretty happy with that. Your team must be ecstatic with how you're performing.
I mean, I would kind of hope so. We've been really pushing the R&D recently, and finding some good gains.
Lucas flew through the pack in that race. What's his secret?
I'm not sure. Obviously, he was being very aggressive. We had a bit of a coming together, but we're all good now.
That was an epic battle today. How do you think this will play out?
Well, I don't know. It's always a good battle with your teammate. He had the pace today, but hopefully we'll come back.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Alright, so zooming through the end of race screens, still leading both of the rivalries at this point, but got to watch out for Sergio. He's coming on strong towards the end of this season. We've got 1,000 resource points to spend.
Excellent result today. Finishes like that will look good on your contract reviews. On to the next one.
So we will have some upgrading to do for the Mexican Grand Prix, and that is yet again another track I really enjoy in this game. So I would very much hope that we can get some upgrades on for that weekend, and maybe push for a potential podium. I'm not sure. We'll see what opportunities presents itself on that weekend. But as for the upgrades, had a look around for a while, just deciding exactly what to do. We've got a few minor upgrades to do on the chassis side, and they will come in for that weekend if we choose those. So yeah, we've got options for the weight reduction, as well as the tyre wear. I believe that one at the top is, as well as weight redistribution at the bottom. So there's a few ways we can go around this, but I think we're going to go for the tyre wear. But I also had a look at the aero side of things. We've got a rear downforce coming in for Mexico already, so that will certainly help us out there. And coming to think of it, this car was probably a little bit unstable because we had that major upgrade on the front downforce come in, but not so on the rear, and that may have unbalanced the car a bit. But we've got a drag upgrade that we can do, so we'll chuck that on the car for the next round. And looking back on the chassis side, we will go for the tyre wear upgrade as well. So that's what is coming for the next weekend. I'll see you then for the Mexican Grand Prix. Sayonara. Also, we have an invitational event to do, so I'll chuck that in at the end of the video too.
Now, while today's classic exhibition event has no direct impact upon the Formula One World Championship, you better believe that with their reputations on the line, the drivers down there are still hungry to show that they've got what it takes to get a win.